Before I ever played Metal Hellsinger, I had a small penis, no girlfriend, and no will to live. None of those things have changed, but the game is pretty fucking awesome. Shout out to Vicious_Sock on the Steam reviews for that peach of a review for Metal Hellsinger, which is out now. Today we're going to be taking a look at the PC Performance. I like to call this series the PC Port Report, but as far as I know, this game may have been developed first for the PC and then brought over to the next-gen consoles, which it is also available on. It is $30 over on Steam and $40 for next-gen consoles for Metal Hellsinger. I did a video initially about this back in June when they released a demo for it, which is still available now, by the way. So if you're not too sure if you're going to be into the rhythm-style first-person shooter of Metal Hellsinger, head on over to Steam, try out the demo. Doesn't cost you a penny, and you'll find out if you like it and if it's something that you do want to pick it up. But you should definitely support these guys, as this game is extremely unique and just really freaking awesome. So we're going to get into it, talk about the PC performance, the gameplay, how I'm enjoying it so far, which obviously I think you can tell that I am. And yeah, so let's get into it. But first, today's video is brought to you by PrimeTechMart.com, where you can save money on software like Windows 10 Pro licenses for under $25. They've also got Windows 10 Home for under $20, and now Windows 11 Pro you can grab over on PrimeTechMart.com. They've also got Office 2019 and the new Office 2021. And if you want to save an additional 20% at checkout on Windows 10 or any other software, go ahead and click Buy It Now, and during the checkout process, go ahead and put JP20 in and apply that coupon, and that'll give you 20% off of any software that you happen to pick up over there. So for Windows 10 Pro, you can see it dropped our price down from $24.46 to under $20. So be sure to hit up the links down in the description below, and don't forget to use my coupon code JP20 at checkout for an additional 20% off. So just in case you're not too familiar with what Metal Hellsinger is, it is a first-person shooter. You can think of it something in the style of a Doom game, okay? It's, some of it, there's some elements of it that are kind of like bullet hell-esque, like some of the boss fights are kind of bullet hellish, but really it's a first-person shooter, like I said, sort of in the vein of Doom, very similar to that, but it adds in the rhythm aspect. Think of something like a Guitar Hero or a Rock Band, where there is really awesome soundtracks from a slew of great heavy metal artists. You can tell that the people that made this game are obviously metalheads, and I wish you folks to rock on over at Funcom. So yeah, you have to basically keep in rhythm to get power buffs, and depending on the difficulty that you play on, there's 3 difficulty levels, at least when you first play the game. Maybe, I don't know if you unlock one after beating the game or anything like that, but there are 3 different difficulty levels, and there is more emphasis on keeping in rhythm the harder that you go up the difficulty scale. But it's not an incredibly tough game, but some parts of it can get pretty hectic and challenging, especially if you're trying to keep in perfect rhythm and everything, and you do get, like I said, you get benefits from that. You keep in rhythm, it's rewarding, you get higher scores, but you also deal out more damage, and you can clear out the enemies a lot faster and survive some of these small arenas that you go into. You basically go from one arena to the next, clearing out the room, and then you can proceed to the next area, and it's another sort of arena-type sort of setup here in Metal Hellsinger. So that's sort of a quick breakdown on what the gameplay is like, and I'm absolutely loving it so far. Now, before we get into talking about performance, let's jump into the graphics settings, and I'll show you guys what kind of options we have in here, as well as gameplay stuff. There is a decent amount of gameplay options for subtitles, HUD, audio settings, especially things with like audio latency. This can be very important, especially if you're playing on something like a wireless headset where maybe there's some additional latency, because with something where you're trying to keep in beat or in rhythm with the music, it's important to have accurate latency represented on screen with your actions and what you're hearing and all of that. So that's something that you can adjust if you want to. I was playing on a pair of wired headphones, which is honestly my favorite way to play games, especially games like this with the emphasis on music. So yeah, it wasn't really an issue for me. I just left it at 0 milliseconds and had no issues there, and you can calibrate it if you need to. Going into the graphics options, there is a full screen borderless and windowed mode, which I'm not going to swap between because it'll sort of like, it automatically switches over to it and it'll mess up the recording, but all 3 options are available there. We've got brightness adjustments here. We have an FOV slider, which I had at 90 for all the gameplay. Goes as high as 100 or all the way down to 60, but 90 is my preference, baby, for first-person shooters. And you can also uncap the FPS if you want to. Overall graphics quality, I'm currently on custom because I do have motion blur disabled because it is a horrendous abomination that should be sent to hell right along with the main character of this game. So anti-aliasing, we've got SMAA subpixel high, which is what I was using, but we've also got medium, low, FXAA fast approximation, or you can disable anti-aliasing entirely, but I had everything maxed out and I didn't have any issues running this game very smoothly. Texture resolution, this is all the highest that all of these go, so we got that on high. Shadow quality at ultra, SSAO ambient occlusion, model detail, world detail, and motion blur, which has an off, low, medium, and high option. But as I said, I don't use motion blur in games because there's absolutely no reason, unless you're playing a game at 30 frames per second, and if this game ran at 30 frames per second, I wouldn't be playing it, and probably not even making this video. As you can see, I play at 4K on a 144Hz screen, so motion blur is a non-starter for me. And of course, you've got fully customizable key bindings, and you can adjust things like your mouse sensitivity, invert the mouse axes if it's something that you want to do. I will also note that when I first started up the game, the mouse sensitivity was on 50, so that was like the default, but it was extremely sensitive. So I ended up dropping it down to 20, which is more than I usually have to in most games. Usually the default is pretty fine for me, but yeah, I did have to drop that down, so worth noting if you get in there and it's way too sensitive, you may have to lower it a considerable amount to get it comfortable to your personal play style. Now, getting into talking about the performance for Metal Hellsinger, I've been extremely pleased, especially if you saw the video that I did back in June of 2022, where Steam was basically doing like this big demo month where they were really pushing demos for these new upcoming like indie titles and stuff like Metal Hellsinger. And the demo for this game had a lot of performance issues, a lot of stuttering, lots of hitching, all over the place. The gameplay was incredible, but it was very jarring playing with the performance issues that the game was having with this constant stuttering all over the place in the game. I am very happy to report, and I gave them the benefit of the doubt at the time, like, you know, this is a demo, almost like a beta phase, and the game has months to still come out, and I am very happy to report that they have ironed out every single one of those performance issues, at least during my playtime and my experience with the full retail version of Metal Hellsinger. The frame time graph is a beautiful thing. It is a straight up flat line, a beautiful line. That's probably the first time I ever said that it wasn't a rail of cocaine on a glass coffee table in Atlantic City. We're going back to that route. I'm just kidding. But no, seriously, the frame time plot is fucking smooth as silk. The game runs buttery, buttery smooth. And there were definitely some times where there's tons of enemies on screen where I would, you know, see my frames dip just down below 60. But it was not a jarring experience in any way. It wasn't like a massive stutter, a massive spike. It was a smooth transition, and if you're playing on a G-Sync monitor or a FreeSync monitor, variable refresh rate, it's going to be a smooth experience for you, and you should not be concerned about it in that regard. So the performance optimization and everything with the Unity engine that they used here for Metal Hellsinger is just perfect. Just a chef's kiss in terms of the frame times and the overall performance of the game, even though some areas are more taxing than others. I wish the frame rate was a bit higher. I do kind of wish maybe they threw on something like FSR 2.0 or DLSS, maybe especially FSR to help out people with maybe some older cards that could struggle maybe in some areas to run this game, depending on resolution and all of that. But for me, playing at 4K on a 3080 Ti, I was generally up around 70 to 90, sometimes even going over 100 frames per second. It just really depended on which arena you were in. And when I say arena, I just mean it's sort of like a closed off section of a level. Like you basically have these different hells that you go through. I believe, I believe there was 8 in total. So each one of them has like several arenas that you sort of go through. You clear out the enemies, you go to a next one, and it just depended on which one you were in, how big the space was, how much stuff was on screen, and the enemy types that were out there, because some of them are just melee enemies, some of them are really fast moving, other ones shoot projectiles and sort of throw things around at you. So it just depended on the scene that you were in, and it was just, you know, the GPU was being fully utilized, so there wasn't any sort of CPU limitation there. The CPU usage was actually quite low. I wasn't like sitting there like, you know, watching it the entire time, but I saw it around like 15-20%, I think was fairly common for the CPU, and the GPU was getting fully pinned, using about 7 gigabytes roughly of VRAM, at least allocated. It was obviously using less than that, but that's what it was allocating. So for 4K, that's not too bad at all, and it was only like a 6.3 gigabyte download, I believe it was. It does expand to like, I think it was like 13 or 14 it requires, but it's a relatively small download. $30 and just a really great game, and something that I think everyone should give a try. Like I said at the start, there is a demo available on Steam. So if you're not too sure if you're going to be into the whole rhythm aspect of the game, which is very important, especially playing at the normal or the hard difficulty. I haven't tried it on easy, but it does state that it is, a lot more forgiving and you can sort of do what you want. But the rhythm aspect of it is a huge part of the game, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So there you go. As far as performance and everything is concerned on this, optimization, everything, I would say I'd give it like a 9 out of 10. I'm only going to take a point off because I feel like for the stuff that's on screen, I feel like the frame rate could be higher, but I'm not really too sure what else they could do there. It could just be the Unity engine or something like that, but the GPU is being fully used. I just feel like I've played other games that have looked better and got better performance, but I'm not going to hold that against them too much. Like I said, I'll shave off a point for it because I do believe, like, looking at the graphics, like, I feel like I should be getting over 100 frames on this all the time. But as long as that frame time graph stays smooth and you're on a variable refresh rate display of some type, you're not going to really be able to feel those drops coming just down below 60, but it'll depend on your graphics card and all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Hope you guys all have a fantastic day, and if you've been enjoying Metal Hellsinger, let me know down in the comments below. Let me know how you've been enjoying it and all the different tracks in the game. So I'm going to go get out of here. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you next time for another video. Peace.